This is not an essay about games that are actually unplayable. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of games people literally cannot play today for whatever reason. In fact, the Video Game History Foundation estimates that 87% of historic games are legally unplayable on modern technology. If you don't have an original console and disc, good luck playing Imagine Party Babies, or, you know, the original Sims, PT, Spec Ops: The Line, 95% of Commodore 64 games, 94% of Game Boy games. The list goes on. This also isn't an essay about the countless online games that have pulled the plug, destroying their realities entirely, like Club Penguin, which shut down after 12 entire years of being online, or Concord, which shut down at approximately twice the speed of sound, living up to its promise to be the most accurate multiplayer shooter ever based on a commercial aircraft. These games are entirely unplayable today. You cannot boot up their start menu, cannot control a character, cannot interact with the game in any way. But as I said, this is not an essay about those games. This is an essay focused on one very simple question. Have I played Resident Evil 4? Here's my copy of the game. Well, actually, I left my copy in my dorm room, and apparently I need it for a video essay is not a good enough excuse to drive 6 hours to go get it, so just pretend I'm holding this PNG of Resident Evil 4. I've played through the game fully once, tried the harder difficulty for a few hours before giving up and playing through half the normal difficulty again, before restarting again just because I felt like it. I've put a lot of hours into this game. I even wrote one of my first ever essays on it and the way its movement system incites fear. But have I played Resident Evil 4? Eagle-eyed viewers may notice that this is not the original 2005 version of the game. This is the 2023 remake of Resident Evil 4. Even more attentive viewers may notice that I don't look old enough to have played the 2005 version when it came out. I was actually still 2 months from being born, so at least a week from being able to hold a controller. This 2023 version of Resident Evil 4 is the only version I have ever played. I wanted to play Resident Evil 4 for a long time before I actually got around to it. I've spent the past few years hearing people call it iconic, breathtaking, innovative, genre-defining, more beautiful than their own child. People love this game. It is, without a doubt, an important game, a game with a gravity to it that changed the landscape around it for years to come. When I finally heard the remake was coming out, I realized this was the perfect chance for me to play it, touched up with a fresh coat of HD textures and yellow paint, which I'm sure everyone on the internet was super normal about. I loved it. It's a super solid third-person shooter, tense and horrifying and funny at all the right moments. I found myself pointing at the screen frequently as I recognized things I had heard about secondhand. Hey, it's that guy. Hey, it's that scene. Hey, it's that dog. So, case closed, right? I've played Resident Evil 4, I rolled credits on it. I understand this game. I know the level layouts and the enemy attacks and the best guns. Whether I bother to play the original or not, I've played Resident Evil 4, right? Right? Well, that's the thing. I haven't played Resident Evil 4. I don't know if I can ever play Resident Evil 4. I think this game is something deeper than its moment-to-moment interactions, something more complex than shooting infected villagers and backflipping over chainsaws, something I'm not sure can be captured in a remake or even experienced today at all. Resident Evil 4 might be unplayable today, at least by me. The remake and the original Resident Evil 4 are similar games. Same story, same locations, same characters, but they are not the same. Just looking at them makes this obvious. In 18 short years, we've gone from the game looking like this to looking like this. And Resident Evil 4 isn't the only game that looks different now. Just look at what they did to Mario. He used to be so happy. These changes happen so fast because video games are a uniquely time-sensitive medium, drastically changing every few years, even though they've only been around since my parents' time. The 50-ish years of gaming that we've had have been defined by eras, distinct hardware improvements or industry-wide changes that have fundamentally altered the way games look, play, and feel. It's particularly obvious with graphics. Console releases creating distinct, different-looking generations of games, often with a life cycle of just a few years. This means that video games, more than any other medium, are defined by the technology used to create and experience them. Books have remained largely unchanged since old Gutenberg first fired up his printing press in the 15th century. Movies have changed a bit more, color grading and film grain evolving over time, but it's still not as drastic of a change as games have undergone. And as people who play a lot of games, citizens of Gamer Nation as we call ourselves, we sort of automatically learn to temporarily place a game just by the way it looks. We inherently experience games as points in time, anchored by the technology and limitations that created them. This is an arcade game. This is an early 3D game. This is recent. 1998, 2011, 2005, 2023. The inherent contradiction here is that even though the history of video games is wildly diverse, it is also uniquely short. Heck, they only made Pong like 50 years ago. My parents are older than Pong, and my grandparents are older than all video games ever made. God, they must have touched so much grass growing up. This can make it feel like the history of games is understandable, graspable in the way the history of other mediums, say books or paintings, simply isn't. Here's a book with an essay about an important game that came out each year since the genesis of the medium. Can you imagine something similar for sculpture? For glassblowing? For carpentry? The only comparable medium is really film, but even the history of movies is nearly 3 times as long as that of video games. It creates the feeling, at least for me, that the history of this medium I care so much about and spend so much time writing about is right there. Like I could reach out and touch each important game ever made. Like if I just dedicated a summer to it, I could understand the medium as a whole. Be there for the wild graphical leaps and the heart-wrenching plot twists, the multiplayer giants, and the quiet indies. Like if I just played a few more games, every cutscene and level and moment that has shaped the medium could fit in the palm of my hand. A ridiculous thought, but one I can't quite shake. The same completionist in me that wants to find every shrine in Breath of the Wild wants me to play every game. Well, every game that matters. Pretty sure I won't be returning to Imagine Party Babies. But if I grasped all this context, every important moment from every important game, wouldn't I be a better writer for it? Able to draw connections across time, tie threads between disparate games, make up for the decades of head start and context that all these other games writers have? I mean, that's why I wanted to play Resident Evil 4. To know its place in the history of games, to feel how it connects to everything else, to understand all of its context, past and present. Because that's what's important. Context. Watching a movie is fun, but watching a movie knowing the director's other work, having seen the other movies coming out at the same time, being present for the reviews and critiques and writing that come out after its release, gives you a deeper understanding of that film. And the same things that make games a uniquely time-sensitive medium, the constant upending and evolution, the short time they've existed, also make it a uniquely context-sensitive medium. Games from a few short years ago suddenly lose that cutting-edge graphics sheen that new games have, their visuals already outdated. Genres that were rare quickly become mega popular as genres that once dominated fall to the wayside. The touch points and references and meanings behind each game fade into the background fog of historical noise incredibly quickly as we inevitably draw further and further away from them. When I look at the original Resident Evil 4, I cannot see the beauty of its graphics, the innovation of its camera controls. To me, it's a clunky, brownish, generic shooter. I know that it was innovative. I know that it influenced the whole genre. I know that it was so important, but I don't understand that. I can't feel it. I've lost touch with the context that made it breathtaking. Now, despite everything I've said so far, I still haven't made a decent argument as to why I haven't played a game that I've rolled credits on. But I'd like to define a difference between experience and interaction, and argue that play only occurs where they intersect. Sorry, I don't mean to get all academic on you by coining terms, although you are supposed to be taking notes. Please rewind if you haven't been, that's incredibly disrespectful. So, interaction refers to the basic button-pressing, character-controlling, menu-navigating minutia of playing a game. The simple act of picking up the controller and pressing the buttons to get a response. Experience, on the other hand, is the emotions that come out of that game, the memories you walk away with. When I played Zelda Breath of the Wild, I interacted with the game by pressing Y to attack, by climbing mountains to get treasure and exploring towns to talk with NPCs. But I also experienced the game. I had a constant curiosity at what would be around the next corner, felt a soaring freedom in my chest as I flew over rivers, was lulled into quiet contemplation by the repetitive rhythm of my horse's hooves. It is only here, at this intersection of experience and interaction, that I feel comfortable saying I've played a game. My button presses and decisions have directly led to my emotions and my investment in the experience. I've played Breath of the Wild not only because I've beaten it multiple times, but because I have been touched by this game in interesting and valuable ways. So, what would it look like to interact with a game without experiencing it? Not to put him on blast, but I would guess this is what my dad's Outer Wilds playthrough looked like. I laughed out loud when I saw his playtime. Exactly 19 minutes. He has interacted with Outer Wilds on a technical level, of course. But can you really call 19 minutes playing a game? Especially when he stopped 3 minutes short from experiencing its core mechanic, the thing that shifts your understanding of the game entirely. When I asked him about Outer Wilds, he seemed indifferent to the game, maybe a bit bored. It doesn't seem to me like he's experienced the beauty of Outer Wilds, the emotions I know it can elicit, and therefore, by these criteria, he hasn't played it. But here's the thing. I haven't played Outer Wilds either. Don't tell anyone, okay? Or they're gonna revoke my video essay license, alright? Just... I've never interacted with Outer Wilds. Despite this, I've managed to experience the game secondhand through videos, articles, essays. I've heard a dozen opinions on this game, a dozen explanations of why it works, a dozen perspectives on what it means. And this writing resonates with me, makes me feel, theoretically, the way playing Outer Wilds would. It makes me understand the urge to uncover every hidden message, the joy of exploring a new planet, the awe of stumbling into something much bigger than yourself. In a sense, I have experienced Outer Wilds without ever touching the game. When I think of Outer Wilds, I think of the feelings it elicits in me, feelings that don't seem to care whether I've actually held the controller or not. This game is meaningful to me, even though I've never played it. I expect that when I do finally get around to it, my own experiences with Outer Wilds will be colored by and filtered through everyone else's stories, my playthrough never quite separate from the secondhand history I've built up in my head. When I went to play Ocarina of Time, I came in with a lot of expectations. If you've spent any time talking about video games with anyone, Ocarina of Time has come up. It was a fundamentally important game, a huge 3D adventure the likes of which no one had ever seen before. Zach Ryan over at IGN says it is indisputably one of the greatest games ever made. Not only did it redefine action-adventure games, but it completely changed the way the industry thought about 3D combat and exploration. When I hear about Ocarina of Time, I only hear about how amazing, breathtaking, genre-defining, industry-changing it was. And with all this baggage, all these ways I've experienced Ocarina of Time as a masterpiece before ever picking up the controller, you'd expect it would be hard for me to see it as anything but spectacular. But the truth is that video games simply move too fast. Today, I am too far removed from the landscape Ocarina of Time released in to understand it. I've tried so much. I've started the game probably 4 or 5 times, collected all the elemental gems at least twice, played through part of the adult section just once. I always fall off. The world seems barren and separated, the dungeons pretty simple, the graphics more triangular than I'm used to. The game is cool as a cultural artifact, as something that I know is so ridiculously important to everything I write about today. But actually playing it is pretty boring. I have interacted with Ocarina of Time, gotten the Master Sword, ran around Hyrule. I have also experienced Ocarina of Time, but only through other people's writing. The sense of awe, the freedom of exploring this world in 3D has never been connected to my own button presses. I don't think I've played this game. So, after all that, have I played Resident Evil 4? I'd say I've played part of it. I have played the Resident Evil 4 remake. I have judged its modern graphics by modern standards. I've been present for the conversation surrounding it, however stupid. I've interacted with and experienced the game in a way that was meaningful to me. If it was a standalone game and not a remake, I would have no trouble saying I've played Resident Evil 4. But I don't think any Resident Evil 4 game is truly understandable without having played the original, without knowing what makes it worthy of a remake in the first place. I can judge the remake on its own, but it is not alone. It drags with it the context of 18 years and 11 re-releases, all the gravity of the original 2005 game, a game I can never truly play. In 18 years, gaming has changed so dramatically that I have no idea what Resident Evil 4 felt like in 2005, and I won't, even if I play the original game on the original GameCube in someone's parents' original basement where they originally played it. The jump in graphics, controls, and context between 2005 and today is so vast that I can't bridge it. I will never have been there for the initial writing surrounding the game. I haven't experienced the games that came out around the same time as it. I can't imagine what it looked like in its own landscape. Its context has become obscured by the fog of time, each thing leading to and from it blurred into non-recognition. I can't place myself in 2005 enough to play this game in the way it so clearly deserves. Because Resident Evil 4 is not its remake. It's not simply a solid third-person survival horror game. It is a genre-defining game, a game that changed the industry, a game with a gravity to it, a gravity impossible for the remake to capture, so far removed from its own context. a gravity impossible for me to grasp today. I can only feel its influence from afar, affecting every game that's come out since. I will never reach its source, never truly understand it, never hold this game and all of its context in the palm of my hand. I will never play Resident Evil 4. But I have, at least, experienced it. People have written essays and articles and everything in between about how important this game was to them, what it meant to be there for its release. I can only point out the innovative camera because it's been pointed out to me by people who were amazed by it. I only know this game is important because of everyone who was there to watch the paradigm shift. It's only through these other writers that I can experience Resident Evil 4 as a whole. But that's the point of writing, isn't it? To give someone else an experience they can never have, be it epic dragon-slaying adventures or the simplicity of someone else's perspective. The joy of playing Resident Evil 4 in 2005. There are countless games I can never play, let alone the struggles of even interacting with many historic games. The industry moves so quickly that even games a few years old are hopelessly removed from their own context. But through other people's writing, I can experience them. Okay, well, maybe not Imagine Party Babies. IGN gave it a 7.5? All right. Well, turns out even Imagine Party Babies mattered to someone. The truth is that I will never play every game, but by reading other people's writing, I can begin to grasp the context, the meaning, and the importance behind them. And let's be honest, playing Ocarina of Time or Resident Evil 4 isn't going to make me a better writer. Reading good writing is going to do that. I can only hope that the games I'm playing now will be the ones I get to share in the future. That the experiences I'm currently having will mean something to someone else one day. I am so eternally grateful to everyone writing about games for allowing me to experience things I never could otherwise, and for opening my eyes to just how beautiful this medium can be. So, if you're interested in video games at all, and frankly, if you've made it this far into this essay, you either are, or you've already fallen asleep, this is me telling you to go read what other people have to say about games. There are writers out there who can teach you something, broaden your perspectives, or simply introduce you to an awesome new game. There are writers who can share what it was like to boot up any console in existence, writers able to draw you into years and moments that you weren't even alive for. There are thousands of incredibly personal stories attached to these games, specific memories that these people want to share with you. The game they played as the summer days slid from hot afternoons into cool nights, school and responsibility distant memories. The game they booted up when they moved out for the first time, pixels reflecting off the blank walls. The games they played with their friends into the early hours of the morning, the burn-in occurring in their own eyes. Writers want you to experience the games they played while grieving, while celebrating, while growing up and settling down and living. They are letting the games that touched them touch you, even, especially, when you can't play them yourself. And I think that's beautiful. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go play Imagine Party Babies, because I cannot fathom how interesting this game has to be for it to get a 7.5. Go read some games writing.